this series of webinars hosted by the Polar Travel Company. This time with our friends from Churchill, our colleagues of Frontiers North. Allow me to introduce you to Hayley Magwood. She's the Senior Travel Counselor at Frontiers North, and she will tell us all about Churchill today. Also hosted by Luciana Mota, our Outreach Manager from the Polar Travel Company, and my dear friend here, Agustin Ullman, as well. Why? Here you go. While we wait a little bit to everyone to get in, yeah, Agus, how you doing?
All good, my friend. All well. Looking at the names of the people coming into the lecture hall, let's say, as we are used to. We are used to work in ships and giving briefings and talks. So it's quite nice to see some of the names that we already know. Hi, Adriana. How are you doing? It's always nice to see all of those names. Very excited to give this new series of webinars with the places we like the most, which are the polar regions for sure. Lou, how are you doing?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me well? Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We're excited.
And Hayley, how is Canada? What's the weather like over there?
Canada is very nice. We are getting a lot of sunshine. So the temperatures aren't extremely warm, but as long as there's sunshine out, I'm happy.
Yes, fantastic. Yes, you are getting into, is it spring now?
Yep, it's spring. We're just going to get into our rainy season soon, and then full-blown summer in July.
That's fantastic. Right. Agus, I think we are okay to start. What do you think? Should we give it another minute or should we start?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to be doing a live translation to Spanish over the chat window for those of you Spanish speakers. I'll try to keep up with the ladies. It won't be easy. It's a hard task. But here, if you see on the live chat, en esta ventana intentaremos seguir la traducción. Y eso será todos los errores que habrá constantemente para mis amigos hispanoparlantes. Así que me anda el teclado.
Buenísimo. Okay, Lou, I think we are good to start.
Then let's do this. Okay, everyone, I'm going to share. And I hope for the guys to give me the signal that everything is looking good. And let's start. Okay, so as Agus and Sebastian already introduced, we are the Polar Travel Company. My name is Luciana. I'm a biologist and a polar guide. I'm also the outreach manager of the Polar Travel Company. And today I want to tell you about this incredible tour that I took to Churchill in Manitoba, Canada, to see polar bears and get to meet such a special place as Churchill Town. So we in the Polar Travel Company are a team of pros in polar regions, and we are Agustin and Sebastian and myself that you just saw us, but there's also Daniela and Cecilia, the sales team. They're awesome. They're also here with us. We're all together for a gathering for this webinar and to see each other. And let's get right to it. This tour to Churchill is in the Canadian Arctic, of course, and it takes place in a very special place that is Hudson Bay. Hudson Bay is the second biggest bay in the world, and it's right there up in the Canadian Arctic. And of course, because this all gets frozen during winter, there's a very interesting ice and freezing and defreezing dynamics in this bay. And of course, it's not the winter where we want to go there. The special time of the year when this tour takes place is from October to November, and that is during the autumn. And the thing is that after summer and spring, and of course during summer and spring, the bay gets defrozen, but with the end of the autumn, the beginning of winter, Hudson Bay starts to refreeze, and that is something that polar bears like a lot. So as everyone knows, the stars of these tours, of course, are polar bears, and these amazing animals have a very interesting, of course, a very close connection with ice. So the thing is that what you can see here is a map of the Arctic from above there. So you can get located in place. You can see the Scandinavian peninsula right there, and you're seeing a picture of the Arctic. And the shapes that you are seeing right there are the different populations of polar bears that inhabit all around the Arctic. And what we have known from the past few years, thanks to scientists and ecology, is that the amazing relationships that there is between polar bears and ice actually makes a difference between populations from the way they use the dynamics of the sea ice. So not all polar bears are 100% on the ice. Some of them have learned to drift with the ice. Some of them have learned to retreat to land when ice melts. Some of them stay all year round on the ice, but all populations of polar bears differ according to the ice dynamics. The ones that we get to visit when we go to Churchill is, of course, the one in the Hudson Bay. And why is ice so important for bears? And that is because of what they eat, of course, and the way they reproduce. Even though polar bears are a marine animal, they are a marine mammal. Biologists put them in the group of marine mammals. They can swim amazing distances. They can swim for days. But even though they're very comfortable in the water, they do not hunt or mate in the water. They need, let's say, a tight surface to be on. Their favorite food, their main food source is seals, mostly harp seals and ring seals, their population of the Hudson Bay. And seals are much faster in the water than bears are. So they need to be on the ice to be able to hunt them. They would never be able to chase a seal in the water. So the dynamic of the ice is very important as they use them as support. And of course that they also mate in the ice. They don't mate in the water, and very, very extremely rarely on land. So that is one of the reasons. Probably most of you that are in this webinar are interested and drawn to polar bears, and I'm sure you know a lot, but I think it's important to remark why the relationship between ice and bears is so important. It's just because they eat and they reproduce in very, very close relation to it. And because bears don't rely much on sight, but mostly on smell, they can even smell seals underneath layers and layers of ice. So one of the most known things that they do when they hunt is just sit and wait, for example, in seals' breathing holes. That is a very famous photo of a bear waiting there for the seals to come and breathe during summer and during spring, mostly when seals have their pups and spend more time in the surface, is when polar bears are more active, waiting for them and looking for them to eat. Because they eat mostly during spring and summer and autumn, and then they go into long fasting periods during the winter. These, let's say, fatty food resources are very important for them, and they feed a lot during this month. So they go doing fasting and no hunting during the winter because it's very dark and very cold. And if there are no seals and it's dark, then the polar bears are not going to be on the ice also in winter. So during winter, what happens is that they start retreating more than during winter. When the ice melts, they start retreating to land. And this idea that maybe some of us had a long time ago, that bears hibernate, that is not so. The ones that build their den during the winter to have their babies are the females. So there is a little bit of a different type of behavior between females and males. And in the Churchill area, in the Hudson Bay territories on land, is one of the most important denning areas in the world. And that's what happens during winter. The females build their dens and they have their baby inside their dens. And then during spring and autumn, they come out of their dens, and that is why it's also this time of the year is a really good time to go see bears in this area. So the beginning of the tour is in Winnipeg, because you would arrive by plane to Winnipeg, and then you would take a charter flight to get to Churchill. It's more or less 4 hours charter flight from Winnipeg to Churchill. But first, I just wanted to mention, because I arrived a couple of days ahead to Winnipeg, and I found it to be a very amazing city, and I wanted to name a couple of places that were very interesting to me. One of them is the Canadian Museum of Human Rights, which is located in the Red River Valley and in Indigenous ancestral lands. I think it's really amazing what Manitobans did, particularly in Winnipeg, about all the reconciliation movement with the First Nations. And this museum, it's really, I think, a really amazing way of showing it, and I highly recommend it. It's an incredible museum that goes through all this history, not only of reconciliation with Indigenous nations in Canada, but also along the human rights history, and it's really a highlight in Winnipeg. And I also had an absolute blast at the Kwaumayuk Art Gallery. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it's one of Canada's leading art museum houses, and it holds the biggest collection of contemporary Inuit art. The Tuli and the Inuit people were the ancestral people in this land, and it's really incredible to see what contemporary art they can do on whale bones and on stone. And what really amazed me about this museum is that the vault is, it has an open vault. In actually what you can see in that photo, that is like a very big structure, is a glassy vault. So it's not hidden. You can see all the treasures of the museum, and also the floor is all glass. So you can see the scientist working there and the artist working in the collection of the museum. And I thought it was a really nice way to start getting into what was waiting for me when I arrived to Churchill. So that's really cool. And if you want to get out of your system the fact of seeing a polar bear, I was taking to the Leatherdale International Polar Bear Conservation Center at the Easy One Park and Zoo. And this is a really great organization. It's a group of animal care professionals, of veterinary staff, and biologists and conservation scientists, called to action by the government of Manitoba. And so it's not just a zoo, or they're not just showing polar bears there, but polar bears that get to these facilities get there under very particular and special circumstances. Mostly polar bears that are orphaned because of their mother was killed during conflict with humans, or because of fights with other bears, are brought to be rescued and try to be relocated. And it's really, really interesting how they can explain everything that we know about polar bear behavior, because it's so hard to study them in the wild. We get a lot of information from these programs, and then also bears try to get to be relocated, and it's really interesting. And of course, it's amazing to see bears there. At the time I was, there were only 3 juvenile bears, and 1 old bear that never got to be relocated and lives now at the center. That is really, really interesting to see. And then also what is really cool in Winnipeg is that you get to do the check-in at the hotel for the first night, when you get to meet the representatives of Frontiers North. You do the meet and greet. And there is also a very important part of this trip, which is to gather your rental gear. And I can tell you, I live in Patagonia, and I consider myself also an Antarctican. I've been traveling to Antarctica for many years, so I thought, okay, rental gear. I'm going to do it because I want to have the full experience. And I can tell you that even though I consider myself a cold weather loving person, it can get really, really cold. And I was very happy that I did the rental gear, and that I had my Canada Goose and my pants and the buffing boots, because it doesn't matter that you don't see snow on the background. It gets really cold, and it was really also great not to having to pack all my gear. This is usually gear that is consumes a lot of space, and it's and a lot of weight. And it was really cool just to have it in a handbag on my charter flight, and then to give it back. It was a really a plus in this tour to get the rental gear. So there's a big recommendation as well. And then into it, after the first night in the hotel, which is very conveniently next to it's in the airport, next to the hangar where Frontiers North has its plane. Then it's a 4-hour flight to Churchill, and it was really a very nice, clear morning. So it was great to see the bay from above, and the beach and the town from the air. And because when you type in Google Churchill, besides seeing polar bears, you see these amazing stones. Those stones are called Inukshuks, and they were built by the Thule and the Inuits, and they serve several functions. There are all along the Arctic, and they are thought to include like guiding travelers or warning sites of a certain danger, assist hunters in their roads, or also mark places of reverence like sacred sites. And that is really nice to see in Churchill. And besides getting there by plane, you can get there by train and nothing else. There are no roads to town. Churchill is a town that was kind of started to be there at the 1700s, because the Hudson Bay Company built the first permanent settlement at the end of the Churchill River. And it was mainly a fur trading business for much of its existence. And it's also the most northerly passenger railway in the Arctic, and it's the only Arctic seaport. So the railway and the ships were the only way to transport, whether the fur trading or the people going in and out of town, and are the only ways to get there today. There are no roads. You can get there by train or by plane. There is an amazing museum at the railway station telling you everything you want to know about the fur trading business, which is a tradition in this area. And right after you get there, you start getting all the signs that this is a town marked by polar bear presence. And one of the things that you start to think about is, why are polar bears so present in Churchill? Of all the places they could congregate, the town and the oceanography and the physical geography of the bay kind of did a synergy for humans and bears to pick this place to be in. The fur trading is because the Churchill River was there at the end of the bay, so the river was a very good path to move the fur trading. And also the mouth of the river creates a very interesting dynamic of ice in this area. So bears like it and humans liked it, and there you have this synergy. So when the town started to grow, bears started to get attracted to town. And why? Well, until 2005, the town's garbage, including food waste, was piled up and burned in open air. And of course, this attracted bears to town. And so the polar bear facility, the polar bear holding facility is the name, but most people knows it as the polar bear jail. It's a very special building where polar bears that were considered troublesome for the town were brought to be isolated so they could be relocated. Of course, in the beginning of time, bears, when they approached the town, they were shot. That doesn't happen anymore. They were taken into this facility, and the premise of the facility is that if you can get the bear that was causing trouble, to get it isolated for several days, then the bear will remember that it's a place they don't want to go back. And this actually served its purpose. Some bears learned from that behavior and never came back again. Some just kept going back. But also the new management of garbage from town. So like let's say that humans learned a new behavior, and it's really cool how Churchill introduced bear-resistant garbage bins, and now all the garbage is deal with like in above ground, below ground system, and so bears are less attracted. And also with the passage of time, the truth is that bears that remember town as a place to go back because there were interesting things to go and smell and mince, whether learned from the behavior or whether died. So there is less and less interaction with bears in town. But nevertheless, all the behavior of humans is still present, and you can see around town signs that said, don't walk here at night. And also every day at 10 p.m., I'm like, ooh, I'm already talking about a lot. Every day at 10 p.m., you have a siren in Churchill that starts going off to tell you that you don't have to go out at night because polar bears can be around. So it's really cool. That gives a lot of mood to the place. I can see 17 minutes, Aus. I still have some time. But something else I wanted to tell you about is the presence of Polar Bears International that is partnered with Frontiers North. And you are taking to the place that Polar Bears International has in Churchill. Frontiers North donated one of the tundra buggy vehicles I will tell you now about, so they can study bears in the conservation area. And there is a really amazing interpretative center, and you can learn more about what you're going to see in the next few days. And when you get a little bit of leisure and you get to walk around town in Churchill, there's this incredible mural and street art everywhere. I think it was in the beginning of the 90s. I don't remember correctly. Maybe Haley can then correct me. They got lots of street artists to Churchill because there were so many abandoned buildings from the Hudson Bay Company, and they made all this incredible theme art about the Arctic or human nature or bears or traditional histories of the place, and they put it in walls and buildings, and it's really amazing to see. And maybe what most of you were waiting for are the tundra buggy days. The tundra buggies are these very particular and yeah, is the video going? Yeah. Vehicles that are used to get to the conservation area that is far away from town, where you can get to see polar bears in their environment without even touching the tundra. The tundra is the typical environment in those areas. And it's really like you're going into space when you're in these vehicles, because they have a lot of glass, they have a lot of space. It's like you are in the environment, but you're not. To me, it felt like, yeah, being in like this Mars huge vehicle. And at the same time, I felt I was really in the environment. And when polar bears show up, and you can see that they're absolutely accustomed to having these vehicles around, and the vehicles don't make a lot of noise because they stay in the same place when they see the bears, and the bears are curious and they kind of interact, but they don't. And one of the reasons that I put these pictures also is because maybe most of us associate polar bears with snow. But at this time of the year, you can get snow. Actually, the day that we were leaving Churchill, it snowed a lot and everything was covered in white. But if it doesn't, it's really, really an amazing background that contrasts with seeing these white giants and the real tundra environment with the dry lands. And you see them kind of bored, smelling the air, waiting for the snow coming and minching on grasses and just, I mean, you can really get to feel the mood of being there without impacting or interacting much with the environment. And I will leave Haley to tell you a little bit more about the Tundra Buggy Lodge, where you can also stay. And it's just an incredible experience to feel that you're there, but at the same time you're not. And bears are doing their things. We also get to see a mama bear with their cubs, as I told you, because the spring finished and the autumn is beginning, and they came out of the den with their cubs. And I just wanted to briefly mention other activities that you can do. One of my favorites during my time there was dog sledding. And I know that some people can be a little bit reticent to this activity, but I didn't know anything about this. And the family that owns this business that raise and that do this traditional activity has lots of amazing dogs. And I can tell you that I was so surprised about how happy the dogs were when the sleds started coming, and they know they were going to take you out for a ride. These animals have it in their genes. They evolved to do this activity, and it was really incredible. And then again, even though there was no snow in the landscape, we had a blast. The sun was shining, and these happy dogs taking you around everywhere, and you can see also the relationship that they have with the musher, and they tell you, oh, the musher, excuse my English, they tell you all about it, and it's a really, really great experience. Besides the polar bears, that was really amazing. And around town, there is a lot of this mood. The Tanitak Museum is really a very small museum, and it's locally managed, and it tells you a lot about the relationship also between these Asian cultures and how they kind of blend into the everyday life. You can also get the opportunity to go to a talk with English sometimes leaves my mind. I'm sorry. To get to talk with people that still do hunting for fur, and it's very interesting how they tell you how they deal with the modern life, but still doing traditional activities, and that is very, very nice. And just around the corner in Churchill, everywhere you can see whether teepees during the day, maybe some ceremony taking place. And if you have a clear sky at night and you all go together in a group, you never wander alone at night in Churchill because a polar bear can come out. Maybe you have the fortune that I had to see northern lights during 2 nights, because auroras happen all the time. You just needed clear sky to see them, and we had the opportunity to see them during autumn because it was dark already. And I guess what I wanted to convey in these 23 minutes and no more that I took you along my tour is that Churchill gets into you not only due to the presence of polar bears, but because you feel you are really in the last town of the Arctic edge. And just there is so much to Churchill that polar bears, of course, are the stars, and I'm a biologist, and it was one of my lifetime dreams to see polar bears, and it was really incredible. But there is so much more to it, and I hope I kind of convey that during this. And I thank you very much for your attention, and I will pass it on to Haley. We good? See?
Let me just get myself set up here. And I think you can see my presentation, Hulu? Very good. Okay, perfect. All right. So thank you very much for all of that, Luciana. Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here. I'm going to be using my time today to talk about a little bit who Frontiers North is, and then more on what we are doing in Churchill and what you can expect from a visit to Churchill. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we host our tours is located on Treaty 5 territory, which is the traditional lands of the Cree, Dene, Inuit, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. And we honor their stewardship of this land, their cultures, and their traditions. We recognize that these lands were the site of significant historical and contemporary events, including the fur trade, exploration, colonization, and the ongoing legacy of residential schools. So we are committed to working towards reconciliation and building meaningful relationships with the Indigenous communities of this region. And now I'll introduce myself and our team. I'm Haley, and I'm the Senior Travel Counselor for Direct Sales here at Frontiers North. I've been with the Frontiers North team for 4.5 years to help promote travel to Canada's north and the beautiful subarctic community of Churchill. And the Frontiers North team is an award-winning and internationally recognized leader in ecotourism, and we've been recognized as one of the top 3 sustainable tourism operators in Canada by the Tourism Industry Association of Canada. I'm going to use these first few minutes to share with you why we do what we do. I think it's one of the most important pieces of our travel to Churchill. And so I'm going to tell you some more about this. We are fueled by our commitments to conservation and sustainability, and this starts with a deep appreciation of the fragile environments in which we operate and our good fortune in being afforded rare access to these special places that we can share with our guests. The people that comprise Frontiers North are sharing in the stewardship of the resources that are available to us, and we conduct ourselves in a safe and sustainable manner. Our company's purpose is to contribute to the stewardship of the community and environments in which we operate, and we want to leave the places we visit in better condition than we found them so that future generations can enjoy and appreciate them as much as we do. We work hard to benefit our guests and our employees, as well as the ecosystems and communities, and we enthusiastically share these values with our guests. We accomplish all of this by offering meaningful tourism experiences in Canada's North. I also want to talk about one of our achievements that we are so proud to share with you, and that is that we are a certified B Corp and officially gained the certification in April of 2020 when we received the B Corp status. This is more than just a certification. It's a foundation for our business, a guide for future goals, and a network to connect with like-minded businesses. So by certifying, we're stepping into a framework of continuous improvement. And in order to maintain certification, we must undertake the assessment and verification process every 3 years, demonstrating that we are still meeting the standards, which themselves are ever evolving. So officially, the long and short of this means that our company is internationally recognized as a business that contributes to a more inclusive and sustainable economy. One last piece that's important for me to touch on is how we bring guests to these incredible corners of Canada's North so that they can experience the firsthand history, culture, and wildlife of a part of the world that not many people will have the chance to see. We take responsibility to not only ensure we're traveling sustainable, but also to inspire and educate people from around the globe to be passionate about the North and everything and everyone that lives here. So it's our responsibility, or this responsibility, that has fueled our partnership with Polar Bears International. Polar Bears International is the world's leading polar bear conservation group dedicated to sustaining a future for saving polar bears across the Arctic. Since 2000, Frontiers North has been a platinum sponsor of Polar Bears International, and through this partnership, we have collaborated on a number of projects intended to inspire people all over the globe. Now, before we get into some of the details of a visit to Churchill, this video is going to help set the stage of the adventures that we'll explore today.
For centuries, Polaris, the North Star, has depicted True North, a navigational reference for adventure-seeking explorers. Our True North is an unwavering passion for Canada's extraordinary wildlife, breathtaking landscapes, and warm-hearted people, forever leaving their mark on all who travel here. We consider it a privilege to share this awe-inspiring land. Join the adventure and find your true north.
Super. That video gives a very good overview of all the seasons of Churchill and what you can expect. So now we're going to talk about the seasons of Churchill themselves. You may know Churchill as the polar bear capital of the world, but as the saying goes, great things come in threes. And this remote community in northern Canada is also the beluga whale capital of the world and regarded as one of the top viewing locations to see the northern lights. The best time to see Churchill's incredible wildlife and northern lights varies throughout the year. July and August, the summer months, are the prime time to see beluga whales migrating through the Churchill River. February and March, which is the winter season, is going to provide the long, dark nights ideal for viewing northern lights. And then, of course, October and November is, you might already know this from the previous presentation, this is when you're going to see the most activity from polar bears in the area. Now, there's always a chance that you'll get to see northern lights at any point of the year in Churchill. as it gets over 300 nights of Northern Lights activity a year. While the weather conditions in winter are the most ideal to see them, you still might get the chance when you visit in the summer or autumn, though this is definitely a bonus and not the focus of these seasons. Here is a map of the Churchill area and where you're going to be traveling with us when you come to stay. Churchill is situated in the ideal location along the Churchill River, which hosts roughly 4,000 beluga whales during the summer months, thanks to its shallow waters that are ideal for giving birth to their young. Come autumn, the fresh water from the Churchill River combines with the seawater of the Hudson Bay, creating that first ice along the coast. This natural phenomenon attracts polar bears and is responsible for the increase in bear activity that we see in the fall months. Now you can see here the drive that we're going to make from the town of Churchill to our Tundra Buggy dock, which is right in the middle of the Churchill Wildlife Management Area. In both the summer and the autumn, we navigate these established orange trails where we'll get the opportunity to encounter wild polar bears and other subarctic wildlife. The last flag on the very right is where our Tundra Buggy Lodge is situated, and I will be more than happy to share more on this a little bit later. So for those of you who are truly enthused and passionate about seeing polar bears, you're going to want to visit us in the autumn season, as Lou said. This is the time of year when you're going to see the most activity from bears in the area and when Churchill becomes the polar bear capital of the world. You'll embark on an authentic and inspiring adventure with a knowledgeable and interpretive guide who can teach you so much about the wildlife, the culture, and the history. You'll get to explore the local shops and museums and even meet the locals themselves, which can be a highlight. There are two unique ways to experience this amazing destination when you visit. One of them being in the town of Churchill itself, where you get the first-hand experience of a town where people and wildlife have learned to coexist. You'll enjoy the coziness of a private hotel room and to kick back and relax in after a busy day of adventure in Canada's north. And while the congregation of wild polar bears in the Churchill area definitely takes center stage, your experience is going to go just beyond wildlife viewing. Safely exploring town with your interpretive guide lets you take in the unique sights that give Churchill its character. A must-see is the Inukshuk on the coast of the Hudson Bay, which is a perfect spot for a photo. And then exploring these local spots, mingling with the people who make up this community is definitely going to be something that I recommend to you. Whether it's participating in a local trivia night at the pub or sharing stories with locals, you're definitely bound to find something interesting. While you're staying in Churchill, you're going to get ready for a truly unforgettable experience. You're going to visit the Itzanitak Museum, which boasts one of the world's most extensive collections of Inuit art, especially in the north. You're going to visit the Parks Canada Visitor Centre, have your own dog sledding adventure, attend cultural presentations, and then explore the Polar Bears International House, where you can connect with the scientists conducting their research in Churchill. Your time in Churchill is full of amazing adventures. And to speak to these murals just a little bit more, they actually happened in about 2017 after the railway to Churchill flooded and left the people of Churchill feeling stranded. These murals were almost like a cry for help from the people to remind the rest of the world that they were still there and that they needed attention and help to get the railway back to this northern community. Now here is the Tundra Buggy Lodge. This is the other way to experience this destination. Here you're going to get the best of both worlds. So you'll have the chance to explore the uniqueness of town, and then you're going to have the exclusive adventure of sleeping on the tundra. So located in the heart of polar bear country, at the polar bear point I had spoken to earlier at our map, this is a unique, immersive experience where you can potentially fall asleep and wake up with polar bears right outside your window. Or if it's a clear night, you'll see the northern lights. It's situated far from town, so when there is those opportunities, you're going to have clear, dark skies. Now, the Tundra Buggy Lodge consists of 2 accommodation units, which you can see on the left side of the screen. You can spot the small square windows that make each sleeping unit that's arranged in almost like a bunk-style accommodation. This is followed by our lounge car with its skylights and a rooftop observation deck, which is again good for those wildlife and aurora opportunities. The dining car and the staff quarters follow next. And each of these cars have a platform in between them that are perfect for those photo opportunities. Again, this is a little bit like staying on the moon because you're never going to touch the tundra itself, and you're always going to be almost observing it from above. One of the best parts of the Tundra Buggy Lodge is that I think is that it's always a group of very unique but like-minded travelers from around the globe that end up forging relationships that last a lifetime, which I hear about personally from our travelers. So I think it's one of the most special pieces. Now, again, to speak to polar bear viewing in the autumn season, it might vary while you're in Churchill. Here is a kind of a variation of the types of viewing you'll see. You might see white bears on a colorful backdrop before the tundra gets any snow, and you get to see those beautiful autumn colors. In the later months, closer to November, you'll get the white bears on white snow when the coast is wrapped in snow and ice. Our Tundra Buggy drivers, which are these big vehicles here, our drivers always provide you with the best opportunities, and they've been working with us for a long time, so they know bear behavior and how best to approach a bear depending on the signals that it's giving. Either way, depending on the season, we are going to put you in the best place in the world to lock eyes with wild polar bears. Now, I just wanted to end my portion of this presentation with the why of what we do. We think a lot about how we can provide our guests with transformative travel experiences. Make sure we're including locals and the lead guides or scientists, and have you experience new perspectives that might put you outside of your comfort zones to consider new ideas. Our entire team works hard to deliver these and other transformative elements on your adventure with us. In addition to inspiring you in Churchill while you drift amongst the beluga whales or lock eyes with wild polar bears, we have a responsibility to confront difficult realities together, like how a changing climate is impacting polar bears, as well as our respective roles in Indigenous reconciliation and dealing with the scar tissue as a result of colonialism. These can be pretty heavy topics for the trip of a lifetime, but we think all of our travelers are up for it. The idea is that everyone's time with us is meaningful, so instead of being another destination on your travel, we want your experience with us in Churchill to represent a point in time where you look back and say, wow, that trip really affected me. And that's all for me. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen.
Thank you, Hailey. Thank you, Lou. That was fantastic. It is. I have been in Churchill twice. I have done it on ships in the summer, and it's just fantastic place. Wildlife there is astonishing. I had the privilege to be in Zodiac cruising with the belugas, and that was awesome. That was very, very good. And yeah, and the star of the show, of course, the polar bears, which is almost guaranteed. It's one of the best places for polar bears. Saying this and knowing many places in the Arctic. So yeah, for everyone who has the opportunity to visit Churchill, I think it's a must. I think you should do it. I don't know if there are any questions. Agus, do you manage to see any typing besides all your typing, which was great?
But no questions for the moment. So if there are any, of course, they can get back to us over an email or just a brief call, and we will be happy to answer all of your questions.
Also, just to finish up, you will receive an email most probably at the end of today or tomorrow with a summary of the webinar and fantastic opportunities Churchill doing with Frontiers North. So wait for our email, and it will come with some perks as well.
Well,
right, I think we are good.
Yeah.
Thank you,
everyone.
Haley, and
Good.
thank you, everyone, for coming.
Yes,
It's been
time
a
for a
pleasure.
coffee,
For having
Haley. and for us, we'll have some mates.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.